You take the screen down, James. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Three Nations Dementia Working Group webinar. We're happy to be with you this morning and hope you're safe and well and warm wherever you are. This morning's theme is spirituality and faith. Faith and spirituality can play an integral part to the life of someone living with dementia. It provides practical support. Faith can enable people to continue to be part of their community. Faith groups can signpost to useful information and provide activities for people to engage with and connect to people. Providing spiritual and emotional support can offer a rhythm of life, reminiscence, a feeling of belonging, and provide comfort. And we have a panel here to help us examine this, and they'll introduce us shortly. Keith Oliver will be in the chair once I've completed the housekeeping, and I'll hand him straight over to you. Could I remind you that these webinars rely on you? We need your comments, responses, and questions via the text boxes at the bottom, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. Please use these text boxes because if you put your hand up, we won't be able to see you. The text boxes will be monitored, so we'll be able to respond to some as we go along. I would like to remind you these webinars are designed, produced, and presented by people living with dementia. After the webinar, we'll be showing you a poll for you to complete. It'd be great for you to do that. If you've got any ideas for further webinars or any improvements you'd like to make, then we can pick them up there. Well, it's all from me now, so I'll hand over to Keith. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, and thank you, Nigel, for that introduction to start with, and welcome everyone to today's Three Nations Dementia Working Group webinar. For those who don't know me, yes, my name is Keith Oliver, and I'm an original member of the working group and have served on the steering group since its formation. The reason I say this is that for me, today's webinar on spirituality is very important to me in helping to maintain mine and I think other people's well-being. Each one of us is more than a body and mind, which is often how health professionals, through their training, view us. There is more to the person than this. And today, through our excellent speakers, I hope that each of us will be better able to find ways of connecting to whatever it might be that touches your soul, be it within yourself or with others. None of us live in isolation. And for me, connections are crucial. And it is through connections that I better nourish my spiritual being, through being with nature, friends and family, faith, inner space, inner peace, thinking, feelings, and yes, love. So enough from me for the moment. And now I'd like you all to wrap yourselves in your own warm comfort blanket as I invite the first speaker to unmute and connect with us. And all today's speakers are very directly affected by dementia, either with a diagnosis or as a family caregiver. So first of all, in our fabulous lineup, we have Agnes, who's going to give us some sense of yoga and her feelings about breathing and relaxing. So over to you, Agnes.
Thank you very much to both of you. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to this beautiful topic, faith and spirituality and dementia. My name is Agnes, as you heard, and I've been living with dementia now for 17 years. And in preparation for this talk, I found myself reflecting on what spirituality was. And I had to Google it and found that there were 5 different types of spiritual practice: prayer, connecting with nature, yoga, attending a spiritual or religious service, and meditation. My personal introduction into spirituality came from my religious upbringing as a young girl, going to mass, prayer, and quiet time in the chapel, which I still practice today. But today I've been asked to speak about how yoga has helped me with my dementia and spiritual journey. I remember hearing 15 years ago a dementia nurse describe dementia as a neurological condition with physical symptoms, emotional issues, and social complications. And this made sense to me. So I concluded that dementia is more than forgetfulness or depression. And then after hearing James McKillop, a person living with dementia, say that you can still learn new things even after a diagnosis of dementia, I decided to learn yoga, as I had a dream of mine and it had been for a while. But I was always too busy working or being a carer, caring for nurses. That was 16 years ago when I was 58. Alison, my yoga teacher, helped me to understand there is more to yoga than postures. To set aside ego and just be in the moment, claim my mat and be me. At that time, I had visions of me being like the pictures you see in magazines of beautiful bodies in wonderful positions. And as you can see, looking at me all these years later, that did not happen for me. However, what did happen was I was able to keep myself physically, mentally, and emotionally as well as I could by practicing yoga, even with a diagnosis of dementia. What is yoga? Well, in my opinion, yoga is a linking of the mind and body through the breath. Yogis, and I'm proud to be a yogi now, use movement and meditation and breathing exercises to stretch and strengthen their bodies, focus their minds, and improve their well-being. Yoga is for everyone. It can be done whether you're in a bed, in a chair, walking or shopping in Asda's, or even at work for people sitting looking through Zoom due to their work. My journey with yoga started in a gym class of all places, and it was called Introduction to Yoga with Alison, the yoga teacher. I was apprehensive. My recall wasn't good. Would I be able to follow instructions? After all, I have dementia. Also, I didn't know anyone in the class. It took a giant leap of faith for me to join this class. Looking back, I wonder, why had I lost my confidence? I believe it was because society and the medical model of dementia care treated me as a lost cause with little future and hopelessness, as if my life was over. At least that was my experience of dementia care. James McKillop and I call this the dark ages of dementia, and thankfully things have changed through things like the Three Nations and raising awareness. Our voices have got loud and strong. I believe that my journey into yoga changed my life for the better. I found lasting friendships and a sense of belonging of life and a way of life that helped me cope with the physical symptoms that had come alongside my dementia, my balance issues, sleep, and sensory challenges. Alison is still my yoga teacher and is a close friend. And as my niece has increased over the years, we now have to practice one-on-one at home. It's been a personal journey of enlightenment. We have learned from each other. As dementia is more than memory, I found that yoga is more than doing postures, asanas. It's a way of life. When my balance became more of a challenge, Alison adapted my practice and we started to use a chair to assist me to keep doing my yoga practice. I was encouraged to be more mindful of my walking and balance. Alison incorporated Otego walking and posture awareness in my practice and how to correct myself when I was going about my everyday life. This has been a bonus. Today, this is just one of the many tools I use in my daily routine in managing my dementia challenges. Breathwork is one of the most valuable tools for me in changing the state of my mind, tapping into my breath. It gives me a chance to slow down and get grounded. There are many different breathing techniques. Pranayama, the balancing and calming breath called Ujjayi breathing in yoga, alternative nostril breath, which is a relaxing breath when you're feeling stressed and frazzled. That has been my best friend, alternative nostril breathing. When I developed breathing issues and was more in bed than out, I could still practice yoga and use chanting to help open and exercise my lungs. Singing is another wonderful way of doing this. When sleep became problematic, I used YouTube and Jason Stevenson to help with visualization and meditation. Another practice, yoga nidra, that is great for helping you sleep. Alison, my yoga teacher, used Zoom and I lay in bed following her instructions. It was a wonderful experience and it can be used by anyone with dementia to alleviate sleep challenges. Meditation is a big part of my yoga journey. I meditate morning and night, and I especially love chakra meditation and visualization. There's different ways of meditating, and you'll probably hear more of it as the speakers speak. Just find out what works for you and use it. And when it no longer works, YouTube is my best friend. Get someone to go on YouTube and find something that helps you. Test it and see. Don't knock it until you try it. Yoga has helped me see my world and move around in my world in a different way, to see the world in a different way, to cope with my different way with my dementia. I enjoy yoga, and that's the most important thing. I'm more calm because of my yoga practice. I'm more playful because I was always a very serious person, and I've become more mindful. It's not all about Agnes. It's learning to be calm, to be able to go within and just be. That is my experience, and I want everyone to know it's only personal to me. There is a link, I'll send it to James, and if you want to see a person who's in quite a late stage of dementia practicing yoga with his carer, you will be able to link on to it and see that it works. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Agnes. That was a splendid start to our webinar. I've learned so much already in those 10 minutes. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. I'm going to hand over now to Hilary and ask if there's anything in the chat box or questions that you can pose to and share with Agnes.
We've got a couple. Peter says, what is a yogi, please?
Oh, a yogi, right, I've only just recently learned that when my yoga teacher said to me, us yogis, it's an adjective that describes a person who has been practicing yoga. So you do yoga, you are a yogi.
Right. Alice
Did I explain it, Hilary?
sorry?
Did you understand that, Hilary?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's good. I've never answered that before.
Alice says it's brilliant to hear of your experience with yoga, meditation and breath work. It made her want to go away and watch some YouTube videos. So inspiring.
Yeah, I do recommend Jason Stevenson if anyone wants to get shown how to do meditation if the problem's sleeping. He does a great talking meditation, many different ones, and I'm sure you'll find one that really is helpful. That's Jason Stevenson, spelled PH, on YouTube.
Thanks, Agnes. And there's lots of compliments for you in the chat box.
Thank you very much.
Amazing, Agnes. That's what you've been called.
Thank you. And anyone who's interested in chakras, which is all the points, if you like, you can get Chakra Meditation by Sandra Rolex. That's who I follow on YouTube, and I do that most mornings, and it helps ground you to your day and gets you ready to start your day, you know. So these are the things that I've picked up over the years. And I'm delighted for the Three Nations to get me to collect my thoughts, because I just do it. And this is the first time that I've actually thought, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And I'm doing it because it pleases me and makes me happy and helps me live my life with dementia.
And long may that continue, Agnes. So thank you very much for sharing that this morning.
Right.
And this morning's Three Nations really are slightly misnamed, because normally the Three Nations is Northern Ireland, England and Wales. But this morning, it's been delightful to have Agnes in as an honorary Three Nations member from Scotland, which is great.
Yes. And I'm so honoured, Keith, to be an honorary member. So please never throw me off.
You're in the centre of it. Thank you. So moving from Scotland now to Wales, I'm going to introduce my dear friend Jane, who's going to speak to us about her personal thoughts on spirituality. Over to you, Jane.
Good morning. It's great to be back, and such a wide and varied topic. I'm coming from the goddess lineage. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm ignoring all the gods that are out there. We have been a very patriarchal society, and there is one God, one all-encompassing being that gives us the rules, that gives us the way of living, and he's a he. Well, if we look at life itself, if we look at life on earth, there are men, there are women, there is female, there is male, masculine, feminine. The lineage that I'm coming from is the goddess lineage, which is all about the divine feminine, but this does not negate the sacred masculine. You cannot have one without the other. Sorry, I'm just getting my timer going. I forgot to set it. So the goddess lineage, that's my chosen path. And I came to this path quite, I would say accidentally, but there's no such thing as accident, through various things in life, particularly Chris becoming diagnosed with dementia. For those of you that don't know me, Chris, my husband, was diagnosed with dementia in 2012. And then I became the carer. But as those of you that know me also, I'm not a natural carer. They call me the carer of the year, not, because it didn't fit, it wasn't comfortable. Chris has always cared for me, and we've always cared for each other. As I've said, without the feminine, there can be no masculine. All of our problems here on earth, from my perspective, stem from all the shadow aspects of ourselves. And this is one of those shadow aspects, the patriarchal society having the one God who is male, he's there, he's judgmental, he gives us rules to live by, and not just in the Christian religion, in lots of religions, gives us rules to live by that in and of themselves are absolutely brilliant and right, but they don't tell us how to live by those rules. And the only people that can change us, that can change ourselves when we need to have some kind of support or guidance, is ourselves. Now, as we've heard from Agnes Houston, she has taken the yogic path. She's decided to do yoga, you know, because it helps her. The things she was discussing are called asanas, kriyas. The breath work she was talking about is called pranayama. This should encompass all of our religions, our spirituality, whatever name you give to your philosophy of life, your way of being. We should all be doing these things. We know in psychology, if somebody is in a state of stress, a state of tension, we always come back to the breath. The breath is so important to calm us down. If we're in an angry situation, we're told, calm down, count to 10, and that gives you a chance to gather yourself and to calm yourself. What the goddess lineage shows us is, and it doesn't ignore gods and deities. There are gods and deities, but there are female gods, and for every female goddess, there is a male counterpart. For instance, the pinnacle, the magic, the strongest goddess in the Egyptian way of using energy is called Isis. I would call her Oset. Oset is the old Egyptian name, but then the Greeks came in and changed it to Isis. Isis has her husband Osiris, the divine feminine, the divine feminine, the sacred masculine. We also have the shadow aspect of those, who is Set. Set is the god of death, and we all panic about the god of death, the god of death, the god of decay, the god of the desert creeping in and covering everything. But without life, we won't have death. It is a natural part of life, and it doesn't mean that this god is going to come in and kill you and cause all sorts of problems. It's just the shadow aspect of one aspect. So if we have the god of life, we have to have the god of death. If we have left and right, yin and yang, and this is where we're coming from. It's that sacred balance. We as a race, as people, as human beings, we always swing from one pendulum to another. We go too far to the left, too far to the right, and the spirituality I use is all about energy and all about balancing that energy. And the only energy I can balance is within myself. I can only work on myself, not on anybody else. And so by doing that inner work, by changing me, then that influences that work outside of me, and it has an effect on those around me. And I've practiced this in my life. I have been in a situation where when the same thing is repeating, if I change my action, if I change the energy of what I'm doing, externally, that's it, that situation changes. And I think, what was it, did they attribute it to Einstein? I don't know, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Everything is all about energy, how we feel, our emotions. At the moment, my body's shaking and quivering because I'm nervous here talking to you. I'm desperately trying to remember and read my notes. That's all an energy. And this energy is what we can have control of, whether it's anger, whether it's love, whether it's frustration. All these energies, we have the shadow aspects. And the shadow aspects, people think, oh, it's very, very hippy dippy. Actually, the shadow aspects are just the more negative aspects of ourselves that we don't really like and we try to avoid. As Agnes was saying, yoga is such a huge benefit. It's only one aspect, though, of spirituality. And as Agnes said, she looked at spirituality and had 5 different structures for spirituality. That's a very masculine aspect. It's a very masculine thing. And it has its place, but it is so much more encompassing than that. The yoga turns into pranayama, which is the breath work. And all this is energy. It's building the energy within ourselves. It's honing that energy within ourselves, but we have to do the inner work because people are destructive. We have the capacity for life, we have the capacity for destruction. And one of the things that really taught me so much is a book by my teacher called Life on Earth Mastery. You can't buy it in the shops. He's a teacher called Sherwin Ng. He lives in Malaysia. He self-printed it. But some of what I want to leave you with, what I want to tell you about, if I see how much time I've got, is how we can change ourselves. If we change ourselves, that makes us feel better. If you don't believe in energy and how what we do has the ripple effect in the rest of the world, then at least if you change yourself, you will feel differently. And if you feel differently, you will influence the rest of the world. This book, it says about that, you know, we've got it in all the commandments that all the religions have, but this one concentrates on the greatest of these shadow aspects, unworthiness. We all feel unworthy at some point, and when Chris was diagnosed, I went straight into that unworthiness. If I can quote, it's what if I'm not good enough? Whatever I do never seems to be good enough. And that's a great big aspect of being a carer, because when the person's dementia gets to a certain stage, it doesn't matter what you do, you are not good enough. I'm a lousy person because I can't care for Chris properly. Nobody will love me because I'm not good enough. If I don't love myself, how can I expect anybody else to love me? And the one thing that all spirituality and religions come down to is that oneness that is, I would give it the word love. And love is an energy, it's intangible. You can't touch it, but you can definitely feel it. And you can feel it radiating from other people. When you see a young couple in love, you see it, you notice it, and you feel it. Going back to the unworthiness, I don't deserve to be happy. Everyone else is better than me, because this is what we see. We see so many carers doing such wonderful things. We see so many people with dementia doing such wonderful things. And that can lead to people feeling unworthiness because they do not have that same life. But they're not taking into account that what they're doing is different, but equally worthy, equally valid and important. And then everyone else deserves more than me. Well, that is a massive aspect of unworthiness. All these are the shadow aspects of ourselves that if we can work on, then we can make ourselves be and feel better. But going to back to being a carer, one of the biggest things people say is to be a carer, and it leads to frustration, it leads to anger, it leads to resentment, is I have no choice. We need to reclaim our power. And it's all in different chapters of this book. We need to reclaim our power because we do have the choice. I have chosen to be Chris's carer. Okay, I'm his wife. We got married. It is expected of me. I haven't chosen to remain as his carer because it is expected of me. It's a choice I've made because that's who we are. We are husband and wife, and we've chosen to be together in sickness and in health. I used to think about the marriage vows and how rigid they were, but actually sometimes they work. 30 seconds. So we must let go of I don't have a choice, because every time we make a decision, we make a choice. I've heard it on the news with all the strikes that are going, and people say we've had no choice to strike. Yes, they do. They have chosen to strike for whatever the reasons, good or bad. I'm not getting political. Everything is a choice. And by saying I have no choice makes me a victim of circumstance. And if I'm a victim, then there is somebody out there who is going to come and save me. And then I can flip to being the savior. Well, I'm going to save everybody else. So then that puts them into the victim aspect. Everybody has their own choice. Acknowledge that you're choosing a more convenient option, and there are no right or wrong choices, and there's no good or bad. You make the choice that's right for you at that particular time. And that is how you can improve and how you can change your own personal energy, changing your own personal energy in exactly the way Agnes is doing, because Agnes is doing it in a physical aspect, and that is also a part of the goddess lineage, the dance, the creativity, the music, the exercise, the movement. There's something called the lemniscate, which is a particular movement to build the energies and to make you, and we can see how healthy Agnes is, to help you cope and manage better. It has given me a better mindset to support Chris, but it is ultimately down to my choice to support Chris. And that is reclaiming my power. And this is what I see as spirituality. How can I support Chris if I don't own my own power, if I don't have my own boundaries, if I don't put into practice literally the laws of nature? And I thank you for listening to me. And I know I've gone over a little bit. So.
No, that was worth every second, Jane. Thank you so much for sharing that with us this morning. And what was really interesting was not only what you were saying, but the attention that I can see on the screen from 4 people with dementia. And what you gave us this morning was of great value. So thank you so much for that. Hilary, anything from you?
Can I just comment on Jane's talk? For someone who doesn't care, she cares for us all. You express a need, and the first words you hear from Jane are, "I'm on it."
Thanks, Sheila. But the philosophy that I've been learning over 20 years, but certainly the last 10 and more intensely the last 5, has actually enabled me to have the strength to be able to give. How can I give to others if my own cup is not overflowing? I have to, I think we said it in the last webinar, I have to put my own oxygen mask on first before somebody else's. And this is a big mistake that we as people can make. We think we have to give. No,
I don't.
Give it to yourself first, and then you can give.
Yeah, refill the reservoir. Hilary.
Yes, you've given us a lot of food for thought there, Jane. That was brilliant. Thank you. You're getting good feedback in the chat box. Very interesting, enlightening, empowering. So I think you've given us a lot to think about.
We need to learn that it's us who empower ourselves. It's not outside of us. Nobody can give me the power that I can take for myself. Power is a very emotive word. It's personal choice power.
Thank you, Jane. And the learning journey continues now. And I'm going to welcome to the stage Andy, who's going to talk to us about his experience and thoughts on Buddhism and meditation. So Andy, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm grateful for the opportunity actually to join this webinar. Spirituality, something I grappled with a long time ago. I think I'm going through the stages and I need to make some comparisons between Buddhism and other religions, simply because it is so complicated. And of course, people confuse Buddhism with the philosophy, and there is a debate as to which it actually is. With all spirituality, we've got choices. The first one is, shall I be spiritual or not? A lot of people are atheists. They have no spirituality at all. And then if we are spiritual, we get the opportunity to pick our religion or not. Some people are just spiritual, but not religious. My mother always said that. She always said, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. That was enlightening for me, really, to hear my mum saying that. But of course, there's the Hindu, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, the last 3 being the people of the book. And I think those are the world's main religions. And on to the next one, which is mine, which is Buddhism. Buddhism is not a religion. It's a philosophy on how to live your life. It's about methods to bring calm and happiness to others and ourselves, but particularly others. Buddhism has to be selfless. Every time we practice, we have to dedicate our practice to other sentient beings. So in other words, we don't do things for ourselves necessarily. We do it for the good of all sentient beings. Don't worry, I won't get too into the actual philosophy of Buddhism. But the Buddha, people think he was a god. He wasn't. He was a prince in a province, and Shakyamuni Buddha was basically just someone who sat under a tree for a very long time, but prior to that did lots of other things, searching for the meaning of life, if you like, and knowledge, wisdom. So he said himself, I am not a god. A Buddha is actually, it means all-knowing or enlightened. He also said, when I die, don't make any images of me and worship them. And what have we done? We've all made images of the Buddha. I've got them in my house. I don't necessarily worship them, but I take inspiration from them. Rather like in the Muslim faith, they're not allowed to make any images of the Prophet Muhammad. So there's a similarity there. There are Buddhist texts, but for 300 years it was verbal. Monks memorized Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings. I'm not going to go through them, but you'll all have heard of the Four Noble Truths, probably, and the Noble Eightfold Path. That was the very first sermon that the Buddha preached. We call it the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. Just as a passing point, we use mala beads as a form of meditation and recitation. And one thing I found is they're very similar to rosary beads. We use them in the Christian faith as well. So it's and also dare I say Muslims use them on a small straight line. They normally see them flicking them to aid concentration, perhaps if they're sat outside a cafe or something like that and they're on their own. I practice Buddhism. So I'm not saying I'm a Buddhist. I can't say I'm a Buddhist. No one can. I practice Buddhism, and I practice it wholeheartedly, but I still carry my Christian upbringing and all that means. I went to a church school. I was an altar boy. So, you know, it's sort of inbred, really. There are no conflicts with that, which is great. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, says, if you are Christians and you want to be good Buddhists, then be good Christians. If you think about that one, it's quite enlightening, really. Spiritual people and their religions, if they choose one at all, have the same things in common: peace, harmony, compassion, care for others, etc. And that's why I have respect for all religions. Meditation is very important to Buddhists to tame and learn to control the mind. The Christian Bible has a verse 2 which says, "Be still and know that I am God." It's very important there too. So Christians are encouraged to meditate. If I could have slide 1, James. Thank you. This is just a quick one, a quick and dirty, really. You need to, if you're going to live a happy life, please give yourself permission to take time to breathe, to live life, to love, to give, to reflect, to be present, to just be. Can I have the second one, please? The second slide, please, James. Right. This is my religion. Simple. There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophy. Our own brain, our own heart is our temple. The philosophy is kindness. That's a quote from the Dalai Lama. You can take the slide down now, James. Thank you. That's basically enough of the introduction to world religions. But I really want to highlight how it helps me and my dementia journey. It's meditation that is the main help for me. And as Agnes and Jane have so rightly highlighted, there are so many different types of meditation: mindfulness, and concentrating on the breath, the body, and the thoughts that come into our head. There's clear thought meditation, where we try and empty the brain. I always used to think of it when I was working as clearing my desk. You know, everything that's on there, just get rid of it and concentrate on being. There's then visualization meditation, and that can be anything. You could visualize the Buddha, you could visualize your children and just think how much you love them. You know, it doesn't have to be something which is necessarily religious or spiritual. Methods important, obviously posture, having a silent room, no interruptions, and then thinking about your body and your mind. Some people say, oh, I can't meditate. Thoughts keep entering my mind. It's so busy. We call that a monkey mind. That's not an insult, but that's what many of the sort of meditation teachers have actually said to me. They say, it's not a problem. Let your thoughts come and then let them go again like clouds. Meditation brings calm, which is important, a feeling of peace, happiness, clarity. It lowers blood pressure, which is significantly important, particularly for those who've got vascular dementia. Anything that we can do in that sense will help. Could I have slide 2, please, James? This is a very quick slide, not complicated, but I hope it explains. I put this out a lot actually in my Facebook communications, because that's very often how I feel. I just need a quiet corner at the beach with no news and no stress. That can be meditation. It doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged, you know, rocking and chanting, etc. That is meditation that you see there in front of you. Thank you, James. You can take that down now. It's a good daily routine for physical and mental health and well-being, as we've heard from the other speakers. I think about my journey and how it affects myself and others often, but I try to learn from it and move on. These are things that I think about during meditation. I can't help it, but we still take it a day at a time. There's another form of meditation which is seldom mentioned, but is becoming very popular, and I'm almost finished, which is lucid dreaming. It's a discipline of meditation while we dream. Now, some people realize they are dreaming and will control the dream as a meditative practice. It's very complicated, it's taught, and many can do it. Probably the best known practitioner is an English gentleman called Charlie Morley, who's written a number of books on lucid dreaming and runs a number of courses. I dream a lot because of the type of dementia that I have, particularly the Lewy body dementia, which means that I can act out my dreams. So I know when I'm dreaming, and this has been very useful for me. It's something that I found easy. If there was a good thing about the type of dementia, that might have been it. I say that jokingly, of course. I'm not a good Buddhist or Christian, but I try very hard to be. I like to think that what drives me in life, career, politics, etc., are compassion, empathy, respect, equality, and the desire for a better world. I have failures, but I try. It's a continuous battle. It's a daily battle with ourselves. And as Jane so rightly put, we have choices, and the battle can very, very often be in the choices that we make. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that was explanatory as far as Buddhism is concerned. Thank you.
Well done, Andy. That was great. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot in your 10 minutes. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, your experiences on Buddhism and on meditation. And indeed, it reminded me of something I was reading at the weekend in the Times, where it talked about meditation. And it said that 12 minutes a day, as researched by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation in the US, certainly helps with cognitive function and with blood flow to and from the brain. So what you've said today is well amplified by science and by experts, but coming from the voice of someone such as yourself carries even more power. So thank you so much.
Well,
Hilary.
I'll tell you a funny story, which is similar to that, really. When you tell people it's 10 minutes a day, they say, I haven't got 10 minutes a day. I'm too busy. It doesn't fit into my routine. Soon drops off. I can't do it. And one of the Rinpoches, which is basically like a bishop in Tibetan Buddhism, it just means precious one. He's Tibetan. And when someone said that at one of the meetings I was at, he said, do you go to the toilet? I was shocked, really. And they said, well, yeah, of course I do. They said, well, there you go. Next time you sit on the toilet, meditate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Which I thought was rather funny.
Hilary, any short, brief comments we could share before handing over to Sheila?
Well, lots of good stuff again, Andy. One here from Stephen, was a truly amazing session. This is proving to be. Each of your speakers come across as calm, relaxed and passionate about their chosen route to spirituality. It would be extremely interesting to see the figures pre and post diagnosis of people living with dementia who have turned to spirituality as their choice of coping with daily life. So that's interesting one.
Very wise words. Thank you for sharing them, and so true.
And the lucid dreaming's coming up a few times, Andy, but few people haven't thought about that before.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. As I say, it's a relatively new concept as far as the West is concerned, but of course the Tibetans have been doing it for years, because they call a dream a little death.
Didn't know that.
You know, that's an interesting one. And what the Tibetans do when they go to bed at night, they turn their cup over on the bedside table, and when they wake up in the morning, they turn it back over again and they say, thank you, I'm alive today, I'll start again. So it's another day, another opportunity to make the right choices.
And if we can recognize when we're lucid dreaming, we can actually change our physical reality. This is what the Tibetans are doing, and it's also what the goddesses of the name's gone, in Greek, but they did it. They were able to prophesy through dreaming, which is bringing from the dreams, from the intangible into the tangible. That's energy.
Thank you.
There's just one thing I'll say. I don't recommend this as a panacea, but I personally believe that meditation and the fact that it's working on the mind actually helps slow down the progress of my dementia. That's totally unscientific, unproven, never tested. That's just me saying that, and it's just something which I'm
sure other people would experience the same as well, Andy, so thank you for that. I'm now, without further ado, going to introduce Sheila, who's going to speak to us as our fourth speaker this morning, and Sheila's going to speak about being a woman of faith and how this has helped her. Over to you, Sheila.
Thank you. I was brought up by my grandmother, who was a woman of very great faith, but couldn't practice it easily because she was very severely disabled and couldn't get to church. She didn't have a wheelchair. She couldn't have afforded one. So to be able to go to Mass, she was a Catholic, was a tremendous privilege for her and something she could very rarely do. But our house was very much a house of prayer. As long as I could remember, we prayed together, and I was also aware that I was a conduit for her prayer, because I very quickly, at a very young age, used to do the family messages with a shopping bag, and I was always given pennies to go into church to light a candle because she couldn't, and I was always very conscious that not only was I lighting a candle for my petitions, but much more importantly, I was the conduit for her petitions, and I really took that very seriously. One of the things that Andy said this morning is of enormous importance to me, and those are I don't quote the Bible often, but words that are more important to me than almost any other are the words, be still and know that I am God. And it's something that I've always practiced. I've known that in that quiet and in that stillness, I'm closer to God than in any church, although I go to church, or than anywhere else. That stillness is our connection. But it's a very dynamic stillness. There is another form of prayer which Andy didn't mention, and that's contemplative prayer, which the great Jesuit Gerald Hughes used to call gawping at God. And I like just sitting and gawping at God. It's a very important thing to do. But again, it's a very dynamic gawping, because God is very good at nudging you in the ribs. I'll give you an example of what I mean. This morning I was looking on social media and reading about Turkey and everything that's been happening there, and thinking I must send some money to the Red Cross. And going about, I've got a busy day and going about lots of things to do, and going out here today, here with this. And I'll forget that. But the minute I pray, the nudge will come. You said that you would send some money to the Red Cross. What about it, girl? And that sense of God always being there to nudge me, to remind me, even in the moments of the deepest and quietest contemplation, is something that I've noticed for a great deal of my life. As far as I can't imagine, and this is these. Everything that we say is our own experience, and I'm not claiming this for anyone else, but I couldn't have coped with my dementia without my faith and without prayer, because, as I say, that's the way I've been brought up. That's the way that I am. A lot of people, don't need it at all, and that's the way they are too. And we have to accept and respect other people's journeys. But my prayer life and my faith has been the deepest support for my dementia right from the beginning. And I can remember someone once saying to me, don't you get angry with God? It doesn't seem fair. It's never been like that. The 23rd Psalm, which you will know, the Lord is my shepherd, has always been an example, as it were, a map of what my lived experience has been. And I just can't imagine, for me, how I would have coped without that life of prayer. I know that I would be one of this sitting at home and being sorry for myself, people with dementia, and sadly there are a few like that, although not many in the Three Nations Working Group. But I would have been a giver-upper if I hadn't had that faith and that prayer to underpin everything that I do as a person living with dementia. So it matters to me.
Thank you so much, Sheila. That was splendid, and brought the webinar to a fitting conclusion this morning. So thank you so much for that. Just before asking Hilary for any questions and comments and handing over to my friend, our chairman, Nigel, I'd just like to say something about my personal thoughts on this morning. I feel very strongly that my life has been enriched by connecting with today's speakers, from whom I have learned so much about them, about spirituality, but also about myself. In listening to our speakers, I've had time and the opportunity to reflect and to think and to connect. And for me, that is what is fundamentally what spirituality is for me. So thank you so much. Hilary, any comments or questions from any of the connected to any of the speakers before Nigel does his splendid piece at the end?
We're quiet on questions today, but you got in lots of thanks, Sheila. And Pete said his mum's faith was such an important part of her dementia journey. She would have said the Lord was her shepherd till the end. We've got another one coming through. Lovely, inspiring session. When I listen to everyone speaking today, it shows that there is so much learning for faith leaders needed. So basically, lots of thanks from everybody and appreciation for what you've told us. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to the audience for coming along with us today on this journey. Over to you now, Nigel. I'm going to mute.
Well, can I just thank all the panelists? Fantastic. It's a unique position. I've been here looking at the reactions of the audience and my reactions as well. As I got caught up in Buddhism, spirituality, the goddess Delphi and all the rest of it, I could find generations and generations of my Catholic relations turning in their grave. But after all, it's all the same thing, isn't it? It's all about faith, support, and being part of standing on the same ground. So thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you all. Thank you, Keith, for chairing it wonderfully. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that registered for this webinar. The next webinar is on Tuesday, the 21st of February, between 11 and 12, and it's about, I think, a subject that's close to everybody's heart, in how important peer support is. So thank you again, everybody, for showing up. Thank you for the participants and for the panelists, and have yourself a good spiritual day. Bye-bye.